everyone, my name is Sam. Thanks for checking out this video. If you get to the end and liked it, then subscribe, bell notification, give the video a thumbs up. It's finally not hot enough today that I can put makeup on without it melting off and turn the fans off in my house. So that's where we're at in terms of like climate change bar in Alberta. Yeah, wrap up. June was a hot mess of a reading month for me. I did not feel like reading for a good solid like half of the month, I want to say. And then when I did finally get myself to read throughout the month, I was just like super not into reading basically anything for the most part. So didn't get through most of my TBR, so I folded a lot of that into July. And just also like keep that in mind if like you were interested in one of these books and you're like, oh, she didn't like it. It could just very well have been my mood. So that's that. And we will talk about the books that I read, general quick reviews, spotlights, and then an end of the month wrap up for successes and things that we did this month because I really need it because like I said, shit month reading wise. So books that I read this month. I started off reading Girl 1 by Sarah Flannery, I believe it is. This was an arc that I managed to get through NetGalley, and I actually liked this more than I was honestly expecting to. It's a contemporary sci-fi, which I actually don't know that I really normally love, but I really liked this. And the main character is searching for her mother, and her mother was one of the women involved in this. Kind of honestly, like for lack of a better term, it's like a cult where this scientist managed to make all of these women procreate children without males. And can you imagine what that would like if that happened in our world? How conservative Republicans would react? They react like that in this world. So her mother, she was the first, birth, and she's grown up, and her mother and her don't totally get along. And then her mother goes missing and the house burns down, and she has to work with this reporter who's done all this background research on the kind of farm plantation compound, whatever it's called, that they grew up on. And it was interesting, actually. I ended up liking it more than I was expecting to. Wasn't totally expecting the ending, so I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Wicker King by Kate Ancrum. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I don't love it. I'm not joining the cult about it, but it was alright. I read Sweet and Bitter Magic. I'm disappointed. It was the group read that I had for the TBR and Beyond group as an admin, and I was just incredibly bored. It went to that, YA fantasy cloud in my brain with, 9 out of the other 10 YA fantasy books that I read, unfortunately. There is main characters that are very polarly different people. And they come from 2 very different backgrounds, and we end up getting witchcraft and then romance, and then their family backgrounds getting revealed. I'm sorry if you can hear Watson snoring, that's just life. I honestly don't think, it wasn't bad, but it didn't stand out from, like I said, that YA fantasy blob in my brain. So I think I gave it like a 3 out of 5 stars. I read Ace of Spades this month by the author that I'm so sorry I know I will not say the name correctly, but this was pitched everywhere as like Get Out meets Get Out meets Gossip Girl or something like that. I could definitely see that. I liked it, but I don't think I'll ever reread it. And I think I went in expecting that it was going to be discussing race because it was pitched as Get Out. Like, Get Out is like this, like, I've never even seen it, but I know Get Out is like iconically horror movie from, is it not Jordan Peele? Is it Jordan Peele? Yeah, Jordan Peele. And I want to see Keegan-Michael Key, but he definitely didn't do that. It must have been Jordan Peele. And it's all just like racism, and it's just, this one is set in an elite private school, and someone starts essentially texting out like pictures and like secrets of everyone, and our main characters are like the prefects, so they need to stop it, because it's not even like just like, oh, petty drama, like there's like legitimate shit coming out. Arguably there's some like revenge porn, and like it's not the fluffy like contemporary YA fantasy like dramas that they put in high school sometimes. It's like a pretty real one, and I actually really did like it. I'm curious to see what else this author comes up with, so I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5. To my broken heart, I ended up trying to read The Chosen and the Beautiful on 2 different days because I was so damn sure I was gonna love that book, okay? And I thought it was a novella. It's not. It's a full-blown book. It's like a Great Gatsby-ish retelling, and I love the other book that I have read by this author, their novella. And I tried this book twice. I was not expecting to DNF it. I didn't want to, but I did. I'm so sorry. So I switched gears a little bit because I was struggling reading, and I picked up Twice Shy by Sarah Hogel. In the end, I gave this like not 3.5, that seems low, 4 out of 5 stars. This is cute, not nearly as much banter as You Deserve Each Other, this author's previous book. And I finished this and immediately was like, I want to reread that book. But this is actually really, really cute. I liked this. It's definitely shorter though. I wish there had been like more chapters of them like getting to know each other, and then like when they transitioned into like being a couple, because I felt like that part was a little bit rushed. But our main character inherits her grandmother's estate. Her mother never let her know her grandmother really since like 5 or 6 and older. They had like a big falling out involving the daughter. The daughter doesn't remember a ton of it, but she just knows her mother, who is a bit of a loose cannon. And all of a sudden she's working this job that she absolutely hates. And I'm sorry, when she was talking about the job that she, like, this hotel that they work at and like all of the shit, I was literally like listening. I was like, this is the Great Wolf Lodge. I worked at Great Wolf Lodge in undergrad for several years in Niagara Falls. They treat their staff like utter shit. So it was just like hearing this and I was like, oh my god, it's like triggered me into flashbacks of working there. And then someone just shows them like, by the way, your grandmother like left you this giant estate. She shows up and the grandmother built it into, I guess, the will that she's not allowed to, like, the woman, the notary, isn't allowed to tell them this, but she also willed it to the guy who essentially, he was like, a handyman is like, I think what they put on here, but he was basically taking care of her at the end of her life. And the house was falling apart for a variety of reasons, which are gone over. So they have to work together. And essentially they start off being like, well, I'm going to try and make you like pay out, just give me the whole place, or vice versa, while trying to clean it out, because her grandmother was also kind of a hoarder. Not of redundant things, of just like family things. And then they kind of have these ideas of what they want to do with the estate, because they also talk about the fact like, so you have this estate, but now you have to pay property taxes and maintenance fees and all these other things. There's no money for any of that. All of that money is gone now. So you have to figure out what to do with this. And he's like, I've been here for a while. I took care of her. I have plans for this. And she has this attachment to it because of the memories from when she was younger, and visiting her grandmother. So I liked it. It was cute. I didn't feel a ton of like chemistry though between the main characters. They had some, but like not like OTP, which I was kind of hoping for from this, but not as good as the author's first book, but a definitely enjoyable read. Then I read Library of the Dead, and I kind of went into this being like, I'm either gonna love this or hate it. It's set in like Scotland, Edinburgh area, and the main character like works for like essentially like ghost getting rid of company, and this world has like, you have to have license to get rid of ghosts and all that stuff. It was an interesting concept, but it didn't really end up pulling me in at any point. And the character was okay, but like I think everything about the book for the most part was sadly kind of forgettable for me, unfortunately. So this is like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Maidens by Michael, however you pronounce that last name. This is the author of The Silent Patient. Again, I haven't read The Silent Patient, but I got a summary rundown of it because I watched Stephanie Sue's Baking and Murder, or Baking and Book Club, something like that she did on that, and it sounded like really cool. I liked this book. I definitely did not see what the hell the ending was gonna be, and I liked that the main character is like a group therapist, and she's coming off of the sudden death, like very unexpected sudden death of her partner, her longtime partner, and thinks that all of a sudden 2 girls essentially show up dead, and everyone thinks because her like adopted daughter, like she's her niece technically, or cousin or something like that technically, but her and the group therapist and her now deceased partner basically raised this child, and so it's her daughter, and it was one of her friends that got murdered, and she's like, no, she hung out. I know she was like, something was going on with this professor, and he also had attachment to the second girl, and so she's like, I know it was him. He says he has an alibi, but I know it was him. And it's this whole thing of trying to do twists and turns, and was it him? How's he making up this alibi? And then there's this like secret group like the Maidens, and like was not expecting the ending. And I don't even still to this day like know how I feel about the ending. It was a bit icky, but you know, I got through the book. There were lulls definitely in the middle where I was like, ugh, can we like get moving? But that was likely probably because I had so much tension built up, because things kept like, the whole book you could feel like something was wrong. Like something was off. Like I couldn't figure out if it was the settings, the characters, if it was the narration, like was something being withheld from us, something like that. The whole world just felt off. So I think that definitely helped build up the tension, but I think parts of the books weren't able to keep pace to keep me wanting to read book. I was like, can I just skip this chapter? Is anything gonna happen here? So I enjoyed this, and I'm curious to see what else the author comes out with, and maybe I will go read The Silent Patient. I don't know if I'll be able to enjoy it though, because I know how it ends, but we'll try. Then I read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. I enjoyed this book, but not enough to pay the brand new hardcover book price for it. I was able to read it through the library. I don't regret reading it, but I will not be spending that much money on that book. It's really interesting, and essentially men are shit. Humans, gods, whatever. Men ain't shit. Like, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. The main character is one of the princesses of Crete, and she helps this soldier essentially escape the Minotaur's maze, who, side note, the Minotaur is her brother. And basically, like, the dad is kind of a dictator and, like, not super liked. And then just ends up getting screwed over an awful lot, and men are shit. 4 out of 5 stars. Then I picked up A Snake Lies Waiting by Jin Young. This is the 3rd book in the Legends of the Condor Heroes. I keep wanting to say the Legend of the Heroes of Condor. I don't know why. This is just as good as the other 2 books. These translators, I wish they would give these 2 ladies the rest of every book that is being translated from, I'm assuming it's Mandarin it was originally written in. I just know I'm assuming it's Mandarin. Or maybe it was, I don't know. I don't know if it was Mandarin or Cantonese. Either way. Excellent read. We got more Kung Fu-y stuff. And actually with Shang-Chi's, I'm definitely not saying that right, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings coming out, this is probably a good series to, like, give a read. If you've already read the Shang-Chi comics, this is probably a good one if you're looking for that kind of Kung Fu-y vibes. And this is just like a giant epic. And I am ready for the 4th book whenever that does come out. And then I read These Feathered Flames by Alexandra Overy. I enjoyed it, but this was pitched, like, I mean, there's the snowflakes on it too. This didn't give me Russian feels, like, at all. I genuinely picked this up because, like, I just want something Russian-y after reading Snake Lies Waiting. And this just didn't give me any of the, like, Russian-y, Tsarist. None of that feels the way that I got from, like, Shadow and Bone or, like, The Bear and the Nightingale series. This, unfortunately, just really fell flat on that, and that was just disappointing. And I do plan on rereading this, though, and then deciding closer when the sequel comes out if I want to read or buy the sequel. It's not a bad book by any means, but I just don't, like... I just don't think you should read it if you're like, ooh, I liked the world of Shadow and Bone. That's what I'm looking for. The Grisha shit. The Grisha-y vibes, the Russia and all that stuff. It's just, that it wasn't in here for me, unfortunately. So, it's like a 4 or 3.5. What are you, this? 4 out of 5 stars. Then I picked up Written in the Stars by Alexandra Belfleur. It was cute. It was fun. I liked it. We got female-female romance. The characters are very polar opposites, and they end up setting themselves up on a fake dating, essentially, to appease their family members after one of them gets them into a sticky situation. And one of the main characters, her brother keeps trying to, like, get her to date people, and she's just like, nah, I just want to, like, work and whatever. And then this other character, her family is not super supportive of the work field that she ended up trying to going into. And so it's interesting. I liked it. I don't know that it was, like, super memorable, but I think it's a fun adult rom-com if you're looking for something like that. Also, I cannot speak to any of the Jane Austen kind of similarities. I know it was influenced or retelling, but, like, I made those books purge from my memory as soon as I finished university. I hated those books. Then I read The Widow Queen. I listened to the audiobook of it. Still definitely can't pronounce all the names of it. If you like Viking sagas, pick it up. Give it a shot. It's a longer timeline, and we have multiple perspectives, several characters. So this king has his daughters, and he's essentially trying to, like, block out his enemies and, like, essentially circle them with all of his allies or communities, countries, whatever, that he puts under his rulership. And so he starts marrying his daughters off to these political alliances. Some of them are happy marriages, some of them are not. And we kind of shift over time. The king, like, he's old and dying and, you know, eventually dies, and what happens to that leadership handoff, and, like, his kind of confidant is one of his daughters, and she's a very interesting character, especially. It's got a large cast of characters. It was really, really good. So I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Then I switched gears and did a reread of Amari and the Night Brothers, sorry, by B.B. Alston. I honestly just wanted to see how I felt about this book now that I knew going into it what the twist ending was going to be. I still fucking love it and obsessed with it, and they just dropped the cover for the second book, and I'm very, very excited to get that. I'll be pre-ordering that book. This is just amazing. So amazing. Such a good series. I guess I can't say such a good series because that's only the first book in the series, but like I'm gonna guess it's gonna be a good series. Then I picked up One Last Stop at Casey McQuiston, and holy shit, I also witnessed all the shit that went down on TikTok. In summation, some girl, I don't know what pride or what brain capacity made her think this was a good idea, Pride Month, but posted a review saying, I didn't like this book. Literally, it wasn't like people picking apart. She literally said, I didn't like this book. I liked Red, White, and Royal Blue because I found myself attracted to the men. But in this one, they're lesbians. So she couldn't fetishize lesbians because she's straight. And she was like, yeah, this is the great reason. This is a great review. And then started fighting people about it, and then said racist shit, and then was like, I'm not like this, or this is just how I was raised. And then kept like backtracking and then doubling back and then doubling down. It was a hot mess on there. But anyways, it was bonkers to watch. This, I actually really liked this. It has, it doesn't have the comedy of Red, White, and Royal Blue. So I need people to stop saying, it's just as funny. It's absolutely not. It's not a bad book, but it is not a humorous book the way Red, White, and Royal Blue is. Our main character is really likable. She moves to New York. She's just trying to figure her shit out. She's transferred schools several times, and she ends up in New York City. She finds roommates, ends up, I think it's her last year in university, and on the subway to and from like work and school, she runs into this like hot 70s biker chick kind of aesthetic woman, and eventually she figures out that this person is not like just the aesthetic. She's not able to leave the subway. There's something like she's either like for whatever the sci-fi reason, and they try and figure out what the sci-fi reason is, and then like she slowly starts helping this person regain her memories, and so we switch back and forth. Like she's telling stories of what it was like growing up in like the 70s as a both mixed race and queer, or I don't know if she's mixed race. She's at least half Asian. I want to say full Chinese, but I'm not 100% sure in my memory. And being queer in this time period. So we kind of had like historical flashbacks moments to like how we got to today. You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed this book. Not as much as Red, White, and Royal Blue because I have a soft spot for comedy books. But this was really fun. I really liked this. And the ending was very sweet, honestly. And I'm very curious to see what else Casey McQuiston's going to come out with. Because this was like a twist rather than kind of doing kind of another book exactly like Red, White, and Royal Blue. Shifting gears a little bit. And still keeping that romance stuff because I really think she makes two characters that you just want to love and root for. But also adds like this other element to it, which in this book was the sci-fi, which I actually really liked. In the end, I ended up giving it like a 4 out of 5 stars. Then I picked up The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joanne He. Don't think it was as good as Descendants of the Crane, but this is a really solid, really solid like dystopian thriller thing. Our main character, I didn't realize this going in, but they're sisters. Or maybe I did and just forgot about it, but she like wakes up on this like island and basically she ended up there after she crash landed somewhere, and then we switch back and forth between like her there, and then she interacts with someone who ends up on the island as well, and then her sister on like in this like eco city, and it talks a lot about kind of the classism and this whole concept of like if we're gonna make an eco city, like what does that encapsulate, and like humans are just like, it seems by nature so ready to set up like a hierarchy in every society and give everyone rules that like the hierarchy on top doesn't really have to follow, right? And talking a lot about privilege within that as well. So and they're sisters, and the one in the eco city is trying to find out what happened to her sister because like the GPS and everything cut off and she doesn't know what's happening, and she also doesn't have both of her parents in her life anymore, so it's difficult. I really enjoyed this though. Maybe it's totally like what I was going in expecting. I was expecting it to be more, as an eco city, more techy. I don't know why, because it's not a tech city. It was just like an eco city. So I want to try and give this a reread at another time, especially when my reading mood is very different. But I actually really enjoyed this. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Victory is Greater Than Death. This is an alright read. It's a YA sci-fi. Our main character ends up on a spaceship, and there's this whole like political battle thing going on that they get involved in. I think for the most part, like I don't regret reading it. I don't plan on reading a sequel though of it. I really liked though this whole thing in this just like in society in this world, when you introduce yourself, you're like, hi, my name is so and so, my pronouns are they, them, he, him. So you were able to very quickly be like, okay, so there are non-binary people in this space. So that was really nice, I think, to have in this society. You can do anything with these worlds, so having it be inclusive, I think that's just like a fun, positive thing that we can just add to this space, and I think it helps normalize that thing. So I really liked that part, and I just generally, I like everything for the most part. There's nothing really wrong with it. I just don't think it was anything standoutish, I guess, or different. And I think a lot of, again, I don't read a ton of them, so it's difficult, I think, to make the same blob for YA fantasies, but I think YA sci-fis are kind of slowly starting to like just become a thing in my head. Though Nixia, I really need to read the rest of the Nixia series, because that one is still stuck in my head for some reason. And lastly, I finished off the month doing a read of A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. Not as good as the first book, but it was a solid follow-up and sequel, and we kind of switched gears and from the first book focusing on our beast and our beauty characters to the side characters in this, and the whole thing at the end of the first book of there being another heir that our beast character has to kind of hide or take on, so that he can actually take over his role as king in the area. And he has, you know, both enemies of his kingdom, but people within his own kingdom as well, who are like, well, if we have another option, let's go with our other options, right? So it was good. There's nothing wrong with it. I just liked the first book more. I think I liked the main characters a little bit more in those ones. So I didn't end up reading the third book, but I will hopefully read it soon. So spotlights. Worst or least favorite of the month? I would say Sweet and Bitter Magic, but like honestly I was going into it expecting that I was not going to love it. Like I was hopeful, but I was like, it's the YA fantasy. You've not been jiving with those. So I think I was more disappointed with The Library of the Dead. I was just like, I think I ended up giving it 3.5 instead of 3, but I was just like expecting it to be better, but it just didn't end up being for me. Most surprising. Most surprising category is going to be going to that girl who thought it was a solid move to go on Book Talk and fetishize gay men. Okay, we're gonna do that one. And favorite book, I don't include, again, reread. I ended up going with The Widow Queen. It was a pleasant surprise. It's a longer book. I think the audiobook's like 30 hours or something like that. So it's a longer book, and there's a large cast of characters with names that are completely unpronounceable to me. But I was able to keep track of everything, and everything was just interesting. There's not a ton of high action. It's a lot of political maneuvering and that sort of stuff, which I just generally jive with when they're done so well. And the whole like clan systems and the breakups of the countries and everything like that is just so interesting to me. And I do really like that it played in against this kind of thing that we have in our mind of like the violent Vikings, and it's all like male hierarchy things, the way that we think of Vikings now, when we see in this series that women being very powerful. And it was really, really interesting. And I only kind of wish that the dad hadn't died off quite as early on in the book, and we had maybe gotten more of him, because we hear about him in passing or as like flashback memories and not so much from him. I feel like that's the only thing I would have wanted more of. And again, this was a flawless translation. Like, you could not tell. There was no weirdly structured sentences. There were no words that you were like, that's not the right word, but I don't know what other word you would use here. None of that. It was so well translated. You could not tell. None of the clunkiness or weird sentence structures or characters not being properly developed. None of those issues. It was flawless translation. I was blown away. And what did we accomplish in the month of June? I didn't have a mental breakdown. That's pretty impressive. What else did I do? I took a trip to Edmonton for a long weekend. I was originally going to go for the Van Gogh exhibit, but a few days before my trip, they pushed it back again, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Also, they just like didn't give me like barely any notice. They were going to push it back again, even though things were opening up. So I was like, no, screw it. So I just like asked for a refund on my tickets and just went for a long weekend to Edmonton. I hit the Nespresso store. I went to get some Korean food and like hit up the mall for a bookstore and like just chilled and did nothing. It was just so nice. And right now hotels generally in Alberta are actually very reasonable compared to like BC and Ontario, but especially now too. So for $100 a night, I was able to stay in downtown Edmonton, and the rooms are so nice and clean. I've been there so many times for work before. It's super nice. And it was so quiet too because of, the Rona. And I also gave me the opportunity to get down there, just kind of do anything that I needed to do. We have most services up here, but not everything that I'm always looking for. So it's just nice to get down there and do that before Calgary Stampede opens up. And I don't know what the fuck that's going to do because our premier wanted to frantically open our province in time for that because it is a big moneymaker for Alberta. And I don't think it's going to be the moneymaker that they think it is this year because I don't want to go anywhere near those major cities for several weeks after that happens because I don't get the impression that people going to that or they're ones who have been fully vaccinated. We'll say that, right? That was my last one. I got fully vaccinated. I got my second dose of Pfizer this month. I was expecting to end up getting Moderna because Pfizer, I guess, missed a couple deliveries. So we've had more Moderna. But everything I've seen was like, it's either, it's totally no issue, or that it actually might be better for you against the variants because they're the same, they're administered through your body, I guess through fat cells or whatever in the same way, and they have similar makeups but not identical, so it may actually give you more immunity. So I was like, okay, I really don't care, I just want a second dose. But they ended up having a couple doses of Pfizer left here, so that's what I ended up getting. So as of the second Saturday, yes, the second Saturday in July, I will be fully vaccinated. Huzzah! And I had zero side effects. The first dose, I had a dead arm for about a day and a half. Like not even like, oh, my arm hurts. Like literally, it just dangled. I couldn't do anything with it. And I had a bit of a headache, and it wasn't anything super majorly bad. I just took, a day off and like lied in bed and chilled. And second dose though, my arm was like a little like warm near the injection shot for like a couple hours. That was it. So that's it. That was my month in June. A bullshit reading month, but I can, take comfort in that I've never said something as idiotic on TikTok. Well, I mean, I've never posted anything on TikTok. I have never said, I don't think, at least anyways, anything as moronic as fetishizing gay men as a good review for a book. Yeah, we'll say that. Yeah, I will link all of these books in the description box. No, I won't. I will link I link all of my social media in the description box down below. If you follow me, I will follow you back. And let me know what you read this month. If you also had any shitty-ish reading month. And if you have read any of these, what your thoughts were on them. And I would love to know. So, other than that, stay safe. Wear sunscreen everywhere because the planet's on fucking fire, including the Gulf of Mexico apparently. And yeah, just stay safe and try and have a safe summer.